Добрый день, мы продолжаем наши шведские приключения, и это музей группы Абба Музеум и ресторан Поп Хаус, который при музее. Я уже по-шведски начал говорить музей. При музее. Это Микаэль Мёльстад. Это человек, который основал удивительную вещь White Guide. Это, как Michelin, только круче. Это все о лучших ресторанах, кафе, винодельнях и все такое в Скандинавии. Да. Что, на английском и на шведском. English and Swedish. Вот это вот основная книга, это гид по скандинавским странам, и также
балтийским странам.
Да, не так давно здесь в эту книгу были включены Эстония, Латвия и Литва. Вот все и даже Гренландия. And even Greenland?
Yeah. And Iceland. And we hope to get to St. Petersburg. Because we have to cover the Baltic Sea region.
And how many restaurants are in Greenland?
There were 2 last year, but I think there will only be 1. But we have one in Svalbard, and there will probably be 2 in Svalbard. There's a lot of Russians going to Svalbard. Actually, I was there last year, so. And we have sort of 10 of them in Iceland, and 5 in the Faroe Islands, in the middle out there. So these islands are doing a great job. And actually, the chef that we met in Iceland, he was number 3 in the Bocuse d'Or.
Mikael, why do we meet here in Pop House?
The main reason is that I'm going up to the Spanish embassy, which is on the other side, and have to taste tapas wine and tapas food. And I had so little time today, so I thought this would be great. But also, I've been to the restaurant here a couple of weeks ago, and I think they're making great food. And then also, it's a must for all the foreigners who come to see the ABBA Museum. And you have the Vasa Museum not far away from here. So this is a great place to be if you're a tourist in Stockholm.
Is this restaurant in White Guide?
No.
Not yet?
Not yet, no. But they hope to be, and they invited me, but they changed the concept a little bit with the food, and I quite liked it. So we will test it. But we only have place for 600 restaurants in the Swedish guide. This is the Nordic guide.
So it's limited.
It's limited. We had to limit it because otherwise the restaurant in the Nordic countries are getting better all the time. And if you say we want to have a quality level up to here, we would include soon 1,000 restaurants. So then we have made it a little bit more tougher to get into the restaurant. I think it's the same thing in your country, because you can only look at Moscow and the restaurant of the world's 50 best, and there are more and more coming in. So the level of quality is rising all the time. So there are a lot of restaurants is not in the guide, was there last year, and they are complaining and say, we're doing the same thing as last year. Yeah, that's the problem. You always have to be a little bit better, because there are so many newcomers coming in to the restaurant business, and they are doing great food, mainly because they know how to make great food, because they have been working at restaurants, great restaurants that have been better and better, and some of them are some of the best in the world.
So you have a white guide about Nordic white guide?
Yeah.
Sweden?
We're Sweden separately, and Denmark separately, and then we have a cafe guide in Sweden separately as well. But we will make more separate guides in the coming years. And then we have Skåne and the separate guide for Sweden, and Gothenburg, Göteborg, and Stockholm. Yeah.
What are the best city of good food in Sweden? Gothenburg or Stockholm?
Stockholm.
Okay.
I think Stockholm is a bigger city, and the best chefs want to be here because here they can make a career much better with cookbooks and television, everything that happens. Yeah, there is a lot of chances to show themselves. Gothenburg has been very interested, then coming back. But Malmö, you were going down, they have a very interesting restaurant scene that is getting better all the time.
Oh yes.
It's so close to Copenhagen, and Copenhagen is the main food restaurant city in the Nordic country, no doubt.
How many people are doing this guide?
The testing for the Nordic guides, it's around, I would say, includes more than 50, around 70 people. But that means we have 50 people in Sweden working with that guide. But I said that they have 600 restaurants, and this one is 350. So a lot of them contribute to the Nordic guide. And then we have 20 people in Denmark, and then we have sort of 10 people touring around in Norway, Finland, and then we have some people living there in Iceland. You know, I do some testing myself in these countries, so it's very nice to know the restaurant scene. So.
How do they work? How do they choose this restaurant?
What's
the criteria of choosing?
To make it short, we know what is good and bad. But of course, new things happen all the time. We get new information from our own sources because we know chefs and restaurant closes and chefs move around and things like that. And we know as a good chef started a new restaurant, wow, we have to check that. We read magazines, we check up everything on social media and internet, of course. People around in the Nordic country give us messages around what is good and bad. We have an email address and also the website. Then of course restaurants as such, they come to us and say you have to test us. and then we either say no, that's nothing, we know this from before, or say and we go there and we hear with people say no, it's nothing, or yes, we have to test it. And then we go and make a small test if we don't know what it's all about with the owner. And then if we know it's a good chef, we go there and make a proper test. And then if it's a very good level, we say, wow, this is sort of a global, international class of this restaurant. We go there several times.
What is the difference, the main difference between a white guide and, for example, Michelin guide?
I shouldn't say too much about the Michelin guide because I think they are doing a great job. But today I would say the times have changed. The restaurant changes much faster than the rest. The Guide Michelin had possibility of changing their ways of looking at restaurants. So I think they're a little bit behind today. But of course I'm happy for all the restaurants in the Nordic countries who get a star. Because that means a lot of them for the international tourists. But I think they should reinvent their way of testing restaurants. They are doing it more or less the same way as they started 100 years ago. That you should adapt, you should wait, and you should be a little bit better and better. And after 3 years you could get 1 star, after 5 years you get 2, and so on. After 5 years, most of these restaurants, they are something else. They have reinvented themselves a couple of times, so then they're too late. But they have begun to get a little bit faster. I have a friend in New York, a Swedish guy, who started a restaurant in August, Aska, a new Nordic restaurant in Williamsburg, and he got 2 stars in November by Guide Michelin. Fantastic. Other guides and listings are getting more important for the people traveling around. I mean, for the Nordic countries, obviously, this is very good. But we, as White Guide, have made, for example, an app called 12 Forward. Look at it, because that's a new thing you do in the world today. We choose the 12 most interesting forward restaurant in how many cities as we like. We could choose the cities, but not more than 12 restaurants. But on the other hand, we change this restaurant as soon as there are new restaurants coming in that we find more interesting. And we're not talking about the 3-star Guide Michelin who've been there for 30 years, or the classic restaurants. We wanted to pinpoint those restaurants who have something special right now to show. because that's the way we travel today. You want to get to this sort of TripAdvisor recommendations.
It can be so confusing.
Yeah, and that can be very confusing. So this is more trustworthy, and also a lot of people travel with the world's 50 best, or the latest, which you probably seen, opinionated about dining, or AD. You can say anything about this listing, but the top restaurants, they are good. I look at them a lot of time, and that's something if you go to Madrid, Paris, Berlin, everywhere, if there's a restaurant on this list, it's interesting to go there. That's the Guide Michelin, but I think they have to adapt to the new world. So,
and Michelin Guide now is giving stars for street food places in Asia, in Hong Kong, in Singapore. And what about White Guide? Do you include street food places in your guide?
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we have this 12 Forward app, which you can have a look at, and in that circumstances, we could include anything that is interesting of food experience is in any city. You can have a look in we have Shanghai and Tokyo and Singapore and things like that included in this, and we collaborate with a lot of food knowledgeable people in the world. So,
and 10 years of White Guide, 10 years.
Yeah, exactly 12 years now.
12 years.
12 years, yes.
12
but
years.
I have experience in food guide from the end of the 90s, and my partner I started with it, started in the around 1990 with another restaurant guide, and then we merged those 25.
And why is it called White?
We tried a lot of names, and there were no white guide. And I mean, it was a little bit blink to the Guide Michelin, and actually the name has worked perfectly because it's easy to understand and also, you know, you can have a white book on things where you tell the truth, and a black book where you don't tell the truth, and we thought a little bit of that as being a white book on the restaurants.
So you started in
2005 with this guy.
And what changed since that time in Nordic cuisine?
Well, what has changed is that there has, since the 90s, there have been a food revolution among the restaurants and among the chefs in the Nordic countries and in Sweden as well. And that's quite amazing. It has changed so much since, I would say, our country opened itself towards new food culture, towards new drinks, wine and everything when we joined the European Union in 1995, fully with everything, including there were no monopoly in getting wine from abroad, and people could travel in another way. So that has changed a lot. People were more open-minded. At first there was a lot of cross food and what we call people traveling around trying to get influences from all over the world and mix it with the old tradition at home. I think it was a catastrophe, but it was they loved to do it, and they were testing everything. But then in 2004, exactly when they started this guide, there was this new manifest of a new Nordic food. So the new Nordic was founded then by this manifest. Among them were René Redzepi of Noma, and some other famous chefs. And since then they changed the mind of all the people here how to prepare your food and how to come along with the ingredients you have in your own country. That was amazing.
What do you think is this year's trend for the new Nordic cuisine? So you do have the main line, but each year you have something different.
Yeah, I think since 2004, the restaurant and the chefs, among them Noma and other famous chefs, have dug so much they can into our own soils and water and algae and everything. So now, since a couple of years, you have to come up with something new. So now they're adapting the new Nordic cuisine with other flavors. You use sustainability food, you use the best ingredients you can have your neighborhood, but you enhance the experience with flavors from Asia, which has become quite popular, and other slowly adapting with other cuisines. That's quite interesting because the chefs have to develop themselves. I wouldn't say that I've experienced any spectacular new trend this year. There are a lot of minor trends which might explode in a couple of years. You can have a look because we always have a trend analysis. What you can see in the world is that more and more countries are adapting to the idea of the new Nordic cuisine.
Yeah.
Not saying that we make it, but go to dig into your own traditional food with your own old ingredients that you don't think they were nothing, because that's what you have with your parents and everything. Yeah. And they are too simple, like potatoes and sweet and everything.
And how this manifest of new Nordic cuisine and new Nordic cuisine changed not restaurants but usual people?
It takes a long time, but I would say now that people are getting more and more interested in food, getting sustainable food and finding the right produce and everything. And also they are influenced by going to all these restaurants. I mean, if you've been to Fairviken or Daniel Berlin or Noma, we say, wow, could I make this at home? So then people have a greater interest for the real Nordic way of cooking that started in this manifest. So I think a lot of people are very much more true to what they cook today than here. They are using less ingredients. They are cooking from basic ground basic of every sort of taking fresh vegetables from the market and things like that. So that has changed gradually.
And what are the best restaurants in Sweden?
You can look in the guide. I don't have any other. But then on the other hand, if you seek for the top restaurant, you have to know what you have to experience in this restaurant, from the money, the time you spend, and the amount of food you eat and everything, because that's really like going to a museum or something. You have to know what you're looking for and things like that. But then you can learn a lot from these restaurants. This is easy to find. Otherwise, I like to go to a restaurant with good traditional food, good quality, but where you have the ambience, you can meet nice people and you know everything, and those are the kind of restaurants we love. We have them marked, not in this guide but in Swedish, with a small heart. This is a type of restaurant we like to go to several times.
But please name us your most favorite restaurant in Stockholm, Malmö, and Göteborg.
I have to say Esperanto
Okay,
in
your
Stockholm.
last week's favorite.
Oh, my last week? No, my last week. Then I have to say Sturehof, because that's where I were last week, and that's a great ambience restaurant. They're not making the best. They make a classical Scandinavian food with a little bit of twist. Yeah.
We've been there on the first night. Yeah.
And it's so classical. And I was at Talk, which is on the top of a restaurant at 6, 14th floor yesterday evening, which is also a very nice restaurant. That's typical Nordic ingredient with a Japanese twist.
Yes.
Which has been quite common. Also Esperanto has a Japanese twist of it. Yeah, and in their house they have this Imutu, which is a sushi restaurant. They have
and downstairs they have the dark
Shibumi, which
Shibumi,
is, and that's also a restaurant I recommend to everyone. In Göteborg, the best restaurant I found, which combined the best of the West Coast with creative twist and things like this, Kuka, K-O-K-A, Kuka, which means cooking. That's a great guy who owns a restaurant and knows everything about getting the right stuff outside in the restaurant and in the kitchen and everything to get the combination with food and wine, and that's great. And in Malmö, I would say Volmers. They are doing great job. These guys, the brothers.
Да.
The brothers.
Совершенно правильная вещь, да, когда ты идешь в ресторан, ты ожидаешь от него то же самого, что, ну, в некотором смысле, того же, что и от музея, да, то есть ты идешь в музей Аббы, да, ты понимаешь, что ты там не увидишь ни Тициана, ни Эдварда Мунка, правильно? А здесь как раз вот в этом гиде рестораны именно описаны вот так, чтобы человек понял, чего ожидать от ресторана и оправдает ли ресторан его ожидания. Да, получит ли человек удовольствие от места. Вот, да, это не так, как делает Мишлен.
Не так, как делает Мишлен, и самое клевое, что скоро Питер тоже попадет в этот.
What about St. Petersburg?
When?
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see next year. We're working on it.
В общем, Эстония, Латвия и Литва здесь уже есть. С нами был Микаэль Мёльстад, человек, который придумал вот такую замечательную вещь. Путеводитель по скандинавской кухне. В общем, собираетесь в Швецию, обязательно купите вот такую книжку. Она действительно отличная. У нас в редакции...
скачайте приложение.
Да.
Well forward.
Да. И да, у нас в редакции 2 таких. Ну, в смысле разных, но вы поняли. Пока-пока.
Пока-пока. Возвращаем.
Намешалось.